Trump's tariffs are one of our top stories of the year, and we've got a special year-end edition of the Front Bench panel to talk about their political and economic impact. Former BC Premier Christy Clark is with us. She's a senior advisor with Bennett Jones. Marco Mendicino is former chief of staff to Prime Minister Mark Carney and a former Liberal cabinet minister. He's now senior counsel and strategic advisor for Castles. CTV political analyst and former Conservative industry minister James Moore is with us. He's now a policy advisor at Edelman. And Tony Clement served in senior roles in Conservative Prime Minister Stephen Harper's cabinet. He's now CEO of Tony Clement International. Hi, everyone. Very nice to see you tonight. To you all as well. Interesting blast through the past there over the last year, James, that kind of, I guess, reminds us what the expectation and the threat was a year ago versus what has transpired over the last 12 months. As you look back, how would you assess the political impact here in Canada of Trump this year?
Tectonic, right? I mean, the news every day covers the waves. Smart people observe the tides that result in the waves, but I think really important analysis observes the plates that result in the tides that lead to the waves. And the plates have shifted underneath Canada-the U.S. relationship like nothing that we've seen, in any of our lifetimes, for sure. Donald Trump is really an agent of change in a really destructive way. He has shaken Canadian politics. Every political party, Donald Trump will be a major fixture in the NDP leadership race as we turn into 2026. He was a major fixture in the Liberal leadership race. Dealing with Donald Trump is a major element of the culture within the Conservative movement and the Conservative Party of Canada. Donald Trump is he rains down on everything that is governing in politics because he has been such a shapeshifter in every way in politics. So I don't think you can escape, I think, that analysis and what its consequence will be. And this is only year one of the second term, and there are 3 more years to go. So I think he will continue to be an ominous figure over politics and policy in 2026.
Christy, what do you think has impacted kind of the direction of domestic politics more, the threat of what Donald Trump might do or what he has actually done?
What he's actually done, and I mean, I don't know if you can separate those two things. I would say I think this has had a tremendous impact on Canada. No doubt, James is absolutely right about that. But I think there are some positive results of it as well. So think about the fact that Canada is finally serious about diversifying its economy. We've talked about it since I was a little kid, and that was a long time ago. We need to diversify our markets. We can't just be dependent on the U.S. Well, now finally Canada's taking that seriously. Canadians are looking around and saying, how are we going to create economic growth? And looking at resource development as a very important and meaningful way to do that, which is something Canadians weren't rallying around sufficiently, I don't think, before. So that's a big change. And then look at how this has impacted federal-provincial relations. I mean, you look at where Alberta was in the last days of the Trudeau era, where they were talking about separation and talking about how they wanted to go it alone. They were fed up with Canada. And now we've seen some real moves between Ottawa, Alberta, and other provinces around national unity. So not a good thing to have this happen. But I do think that there are some long-term benefits, in addition to the downsides that James has enumerated, for Canada in finding its feet finally and really wanting to become an international player on its own footing, not just because we're so close to the Americans.
Just sort of jumping off that point, Tony, if I think of the sort of crass politics of it, I don't know if in my life I have ever seen so much political consensus around the kinds of things that Christy talks about. And I don't mean that to say that there's total agreement or that there is consensus, but the fact that as much of it exists around things like pipelines or economic development more broadly or diversifying away from dependence on the United States, like that in of itself is pretty impactful, it feels.
Absolutely correct. And what I would add, though, is that this is a long time coming. This reckoning actually has built up over years and perhaps even a couple of decades. So it's Trump has acted as the megaphone for these issues, but even under Biden, the United States was protecting its own, reshoring as much as it could, setting up barriers. These issues, whether it's Democratic or Republican politics, especially on tariffs, have been around. We have had a reckoning on our military spending this year. Well, that's been around as an issue. I remember President Obama speaking in the House of Commons of Canada saying, guys, you got to spend more on the military. And everybody's all clapping away in the House of Commons. Yeah, good job, Barack. You're absolutely right. And then nothing happened, right? So I think that this has all been built up over time. And as James had referenced Donald Trump as being the one who shakes things up, he's brought it to our front brain attention, which had to happen at some point anyway.
I wonder, thinking just about that, as I heard Tony sort of describe that this has been in the cards for a while, I thought of, I interviewed the governor of Delaware, Marco, a few days ago, who's, a Democrat, very much against the tariffs, but very, very forthcoming about the idea that people in his state who support Democrats are also very much bought into the America First ideology from an economic perspective and other ideological perspectives. And he was making the point, like, it's not just going to go away, even if the Supreme Court decides something and Trump backs off a bit from his tariff regime. What are the implications, do you think, if we take that to be true, for Canadian politics in the more long term?
That we've got to continue on the course that Mark Carney has charted out. And I know that James used the tectonic plates as a metaphor. I'll throw another one out for your viewers, and that is that we find ourselves in a winter classic here between Team Canada and the United States on the ice. And you have Mark Carney arrive on a new shift, putting on the jersey, rallying the country, shielding workers from the instability of the tariff war, certainly providing some stability to the sectors that have been most impacted, and steering the economy towards being more united through major projects in energy and housing and defense. And I think you're quite right, Vashi. This is an unprecedented moment where we are seeing across the aisle multi-partisan cooperation. And that's how we need to carry on. I mean, I think that's the way that we immunize ourselves from the America First approach, which I agree is going to be less driven by one party or the other. So, I mean, this is a time for us to, I think, really capitalize on the fresh energy that Mark Carney has brought. It's not without its challenges. Certainly, Canadians are still feeling it when it comes to the cost of living. But we do have a moment here. And I think there hopefully will be some optimism going into 26.